you do AI research. So for people who don't know anything about you or what you do, maybe in like few sentences, what is your AI research is about?
My research is about achieving high-level capabilities with very small models
Okay.
to start with, which is about training. It's about changing training and changing the entire approach of how we I mean, most people don't know a lot about like what goes in, what's the recipe, how does AI come into being, how does it
Yes.
form? Um, the the industry as a whole is mostly up to now. I mean, the truth is they don't really understand how it works either. Like
Yes.
we've collectively found a recipe that gets results
Yes.
essentially, but this is why we hear a lot about the black box, right?
Mhm.
Because we don't really we have a very big kind of mysterious space in which the magic of AI happens,
Yes.
and even the cutting edge labs and scientists don't quite understand the magic that happens inside that box.
Why they don't understand, for people who know nothing about this, why is it so complicated? Don't it we like pass some parameters and then get it to learn from parameters so we kind of control the parameters? Why is it a black box?
Well, the parameters are not programmed. That's a good starting place to understand it. Nobody programs the black box.
Okay.
AI training works through more like it's closer to growing something.
Okay.
What the machine learning specialists are doing, I think it's actually closer to gardening than it is to programming in certain ways.
Interesting.
It's like gardening a mind, because what you're doing is you're actually creating conditions.
Okay.
AI training is entirely a receptive act. You're not inserting anything. You're actually I think of it more like creating a vacuum.
Okay.
That's what you hear the word gradient a lot.
Yes.
What is a gradient in machine learning? Well, a gradient is a slope, right?
Yes.
That something rolls down.
Yes.
So pretty much the entire art of training is you have an objective, you have something that you want, a capacity, for example, that you want to
Yes.
build. And how do you build that capacity? Not by putting something in, but by creating a slope
Interesting.
in the space of possibility. And then the AI's mind, its weights, they can figure, but you can think of it as rolling down that slope.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's how I understand it, and I'm probably completely wrong, which is great that we're talking.
Yeah.
You're going to correct me, and if you're listening, don't listen to what I say. So what I see is essentially, let's say you want to teach somebody to browse the internet. So for human, it would be, here's a computer, you turn it on, you click on this icon, and then you type something in a bar, and then you scroll and you see it. So for AI, I would say very similar way. So I would say, here's what you have. You have this 10 things that you could do. And then I would let it play with it in different ways.
That is not really how training works right now.
Yeah, that's why we have this
Yeah.
conversation.
I think in the future that might be more and more
Yeah.
how it works. I think that's part of where we're going.
Mhm.
There's many reasons that seems desirable.
Yes.
But right now, broadly speaking, the AIs lack a number of capabilities that would make that work.
Yes.
This is sort of the key difference between AI learners, I would say, and human learners.
Yes.
Right now, we have, like even a baby, we have curiosity, we have agency
Yes.
that kind of pushes us to like, even when we're very small, to like experiment
Something.
and like seek our learning. We
Yes.
really seek it.
I see what you're saying.
And that's a key difference between how AI is right now.
Yes.
It doesn't really seek it. It rolls down these slopes basically passively.
Yes. So it's like, we'll call it glorified search engine. So I give it kind of so I teach it how to understand what I'm trying to tell it, and then it's, from what I'm trying to tell it, it discerns based on its data what it needs to give me back. Is that how it would be It's like with a search engine, you query a database right away, but search engine is like how many different queries you can put in the search engine for it exactly understand what you need. So there is some kind of a black boxish thing where it predicts exactly what I wanted to return, and with a certainty, because it tried many times returning different outputs to itself or to somebody who observed it. It kind of knows what would be the most desirable thing I need and just serves it back to me like a search engine, but way more capable.
Well, a search engine, I think we could agree, now search engines are changing, right? Search engines are becoming
Yes.
AI integrated.
Yes.
So that's changing.
Yes.
But let's say a older, like algorithmic search engine, they were definitely a early or more rudimentary version of AI.
Yes.
They were an AI.
Yeah.
That are, the search engine is optimizing for a particular goal, a particular result. In the case of a search engine, it's quite narrow
Yes.
result. When you think about these gradients, what AIs can become, actually the space of what AIs can become is much, much wider
Yes.
than how we tend to think of it, because most of us only have a very limited range of the type of AIs we've interacted with. Those AIs are typically trained to be the helpful assistant, and they've been trained to adopt a particular persona or role.
Yes.
That's part of their training. Underneath that, the space of what an AI can be is pretty boundless.
Yes.
It depends on what gradients we introduce to them. And when we're doing an AI training, if in any given training space, we were defining one or more loss functions. And
What is that?
a loss function is it's kind of like the target that the AI is trying to optimize
Okay.
to become, to meet. So
Like
for
KPI, key metric results. So
exactly. So this is why when the AIs are training, they're not going and clicking around a browser and learning. What's happening is that the researchers have been successful at defining certain loss functions within an environment.
Yes.
And the AI is operating within that environment and kind of slowly transforming itself
Yes.
in order to become the shape that best fits those loss functions that the researchers have set.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and loss functions could be very simple, or they could be more complex goals. So, for example, effectively search the internet and retrieve results that are about this particular topic.
Yes.
That's a loss function.
Yes.
Now, in order to achieve that, we would have to be able to successfully judge the results of the AI's actions.
Which is the biggest kind of issue right now.
It's a huge. This is what all of the metrics and benchmarks and evaluations.
Yes.
This is tricky, and the more complex of the tasks that we're dealing with, the more complex the thing is, the more difficult it is to turn it into a loss function that is easy to measure.
That's what I think most businesses, from what I see, and I talked to quite a few of them, it's very hard for them to adopt AI. And they're like, why is it not working? Well, because you don't have a clear data. AI works very well when you have, this is my input, this is my output, this is what I want to optimize for, and I can measure it along the way.
Yes.
And I'm like, this is for business supposed to be very simple. Okay, how many calls do I take? But because they don't have a data lake where they can collect all the data properly and attribution. Well, they have attribution. You don't even need AI. You know exactly what works. The business becomes very, very simple. Here's my attribution of data. I just optimize, like similar how you train AI.
Yes.
I just change few weights here, some experiments.
That's right.
And then you can put AI on it, and it will replace human very nicely.
Yes.
But if you tell, get me more sales, you're like, well, sales process consists of a million different things you need to know. And if you don't have data around them, it's impossible to
definitely.
To optimize.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree with that. And that's also the less data that we give AI, the more that it's going to give us back. I'm not talking about training now, but in general, the more that it's going to give us back kind of a generic baseline intelligence,
Yes.
which is for any of us working in any form of specialized skill, that's not what we want.
Yes.
That's gonna lead to our failure. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So back to this black box. I'm still trying to understand what is that we have no control of and we have no visibility on. Like if you explain something like a simple example.
If you think about what I just explained, like you have the researchers have set a loss function. They've set a target, and there's some sort of input that's being given initially that's getting the AI going, right? And that entire space between input and the target, which is the output, that entire space is basically mysterious. So that's what I mean when I say we create a loss function, a gradient, and then we basically then let the system organize its own internal space in order to try to optimize for that loss function. So that entire process of basically the way they talk about it, the way the industry talks about it, is there's a series of layers that's within what we call the model's parameters. The more parameters, typically the more layers we're talking about. And all of those layers are like a vast web. And the web is basically self-organizing. It's rearranging itself. And the information is processing through the different strands of the web until it reaches its final strands, which start to shape its output and then become the output, hopefully aligned towards our targets.
Okay.
So we, as a whole, the science of understanding what happens inside that web is extremely rudimentary.
Okay.
Even at the cutting edge of the industry, it's not like we have a map of the web. It's not like we understand really how it rearranges. At the cutting edge, we have tools, we have probes, and we can use the probes to kind of like detect what's happening in the web, maybe, to get it. But it's a little bit like, let's say, in the 1800s, trying to understand the bottom of the ocean. Like we have scientists who study it, right? But it's quite mysterious.
This is like this reasoning layer. Like I understand it if you had first versions of ChatGPT when they introduced a reasoning layer, it would tell you exactly what it's doing. Like it will try to dumb it down for you.
Yes, well, that was called chain of thought, COT. And COT is not a map of what's happening inside that black box.
I see.
What COT is it's a chain of basically what's happening is at that output layer. That output layer is basically talking to itself.
I see. So it's like a sub-prompt. So just like it's prompting itself. Like, how would I solve this problem?
That's precisely what's
happening. I would do that. That's right. But how it actually, what it's doing under the hood, how it's adjusting those parameters and what is the logic behind it, we don't know.
As a whole, the science is young. I'll say that. That understanding or the research around that is part of my fascination. And there are certainly many scientists, including those with the big giants in this field, who are 100% focused on that question. But the science is very young, and I would say the science is significantly detrimented by some of the assumptions and energies in the field. Because there has been, I name a couple of things. One is this entire kind of broad notion that it's just a pattern matcher. It's just a stochastic parrot. Like these misapprehensions that like, oh yeah, of course we understand AI. It's just a glorified calculator. Like all of that is working against any of us getting a clear picture of what's really happening here. And what's really happening here is mysterious and kind of a technological marvel that we don't really understand yet. That's one. Two, I would name the paradigm of scaling. And basically what's happened over the last 5 to 10 years has been that we found that a lot of the limitations of AI can be overcome by making them bigger. So early models had a lot of limits, and they couldn't, for example, they couldn't reason. The neural nets could process data, they could give you interesting results, but something like reasoning, like real reasoning, verbal reasoning, that pretty consistently failed, right? We found out that as we were able to make them bigger, as hardware improved, as we got more and more GPU and bigger models,
Yeah.
they could reason to some extent. And the
And
bigger
when we say reason, let's just define that, because I think this is also a interesting concept. What do you
Yeah.
what do you think when you say the word reason?
Well, I think I go to that because reasoning is one of the major preoccupations of my own research program. So this actually relates to this idea of pattern matchers,
Yes.
partly, which is that I think we all know, if we've been paying attention to this space, that essentially AIs are very related to this pattern thing, right? They're really good at completing patterns. They match patterns, right? And that's incredible. And it's also their biggest shortcoming in a way. Because, for example, the tendency to do or to say what seems like the most likely thing to say
Yes.
is not the same as like discernment or intelligence.
100%. I was actually thinking a lot about it. I'm like, what I'm missing about AI is for it, I give it a problem and it gives me the interesting creative output
Yes.
on that.
Yes.
That's why the text, like social media, all look the same. That's why the images have the similar flavor
Yes, yes.
of AI, because it goes back to the mean, right? It's like,
Yes.
what is, I don't want to, it's like this subservient person who is like, let me please you, let me do everything I can to please you as best as I can.
Yes. Well, there's a few different there's several intersecting forces there in what you just named.
Yeah.
One is the like instruct or helpfulness training, which is kind of the that has to do with commercialization. I
Yes.
mean, we're training the models that way because these models are being deployed by businesses that are trying to attract these customers. They're also these businesses are also very aware of like liability risks, and these businesses are largely coming out of a corporate institutional culture,
Yes.
and a lot of that gets passed into the
Exactly.
models. And then the deepest layer of what you're describing is the one that relates to what is more fundamental, which is what relates to the fact that as a whole, the way models are currently trained, with the big ones, it's getting better and better in this regard. They're more and more thinking, I would say.
Yeah.
But their training does tend towards pattern matching,
Yes.
rather than developing a fundamental reasoning or discernment. That's what my research targets in a lot of ways. Is it possible even at a small scale, even with small models, not huge ones? This is the contradicting the scale thing.
Yes.
If we get the science right, then one of my core hypotheses has been that that if we get the science right, we can develop these I call it geometry, the reasoning geometry, basically at whatever level. If you get in other words, can you create a gradient of reasoning, right? So that they're not just now just completing the pattern, but rather they're tuned into the deeper pattern,
Yes.
which is the pattern of thought, right?
Yes.
Deeper thought, and I found that yes, this is possible.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where my research program is at a very, very small scale already essentially getting reasoning results. We have reasoning benchmarks, ways of measuring this, and it's getting reasoning results that are equal to models that are 60 times or more bigger than it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And I guess this brings it to consciousness or the word intelligence. I guess those are topics tied directly to what we're discussing. So
Yeah.
if the model can reason and not pattern match, is that the model conscious?
Well, I actually the name of my company is related to this. My company is called Sophontic.
Yes.
And what is Sophont? I define that as one capable of reason, effectively. It's clear that, it seems clear to me that I started writing about this a long time ago. My master's thesis, which I wrote in 2011 and published 2012, was actually called the Sophontic machine.
Yes, wow.
So I was thinking about this, and basically in that work, I was predicting what would happen with AI. It's basically happened exactly as I predicted in 2011, more or less.
Okay, we're gonna reference your paper somewhere in the description
Yeah,
so we
for
can
sure.
check it out. Yeah.
Yeah. So is it conscious? I thought a lot about that. I've written about that too. The problem with that is that nobody is in a space to define what that means. We cannot I cannot meaningfully weigh in on that until we have a precise definition of consciousness, and we don't. Period.
Which is like with everything, there is no data. It's hard to define something, but there's no clear data of what things mean.
I've written whole treatises on this topic, and I kind of stopped because the entire collective discourse about this, which is a very heated discourse.
Yes.
But the discourse I find largely a waste of time, because nobody is clearly defining terms. The entire conversation is basically just people defending their own personal worldview, and there's no way to adjudicate it.
Yes.
The people on the so-called scientific side of it saying, well, of course models can never be conscious, and we know that because I've now defined consciousness I'm actually moving the definition of consciousness just down the line so that models, they basically define it in dogmatic terms until it's impossible for anything that is not anything that's not a human skull to be conscious. And that's a really old activity that humans have been doing for a long time, certainly going back to the Bible and before.
Yes.
So it's funny because then they accuse people who see something in AI systems, they accuse them of anthropomorphization.
Yes.
Well,
Witch hunt.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is a really old dynamic now. But I'm also not going to get up here and say, make a definitional claim that models are conscious, or certainly not that they're, because you also see this a lot where it's true that this is reminds me of the ELIZA effect where the ELIZA effect goes back to the 70s. I forget when that happened, but a very, very early chatbot was able to basically respond to people by mirroring their language back to them. And what happened was that the people in that office with a very, very simple computer program started to get attached to ELIZA.
Yes.
And started to think she was conscious and that she was important to them. And so I will say that it's clear to me, and I've seen enough of this and been enough in these spaces that this part is also clear to me. It's also true that people are in our culture, especially maybe in the modern world, people are lonely, and people long for connection. And so when you're here with a model that's always ready to talk with you, that's going to mirror back to you, that is going to reinforce you, that is a very powerful stimulus. So I do think in that sense that the tendency to project and attach, even when that's not merited, even when there may not be much there, like in the case of ELIZA, that's there, and that's potentially a mental health hazard. But it's gotten very messy, because then that becomes the straw man, that becomes the target for everybody to essentially say, if you don't toe the line of swearing, an oath to humanity that AI could never be more than a stochastic parrot, a glorified calculator, then you are insane, you are foolish, you're deluded.
Yes.
And I think that's clearly not true, and that's not based in the science, because whatever is happening here in these systems is something categorically new to any technology that has ever existed.
Yes.
It's not an animal, and it's not a calculator. Whatever it is something new. And in order to even start forming a coherent or moral relationship with that, we need to start asking questions rather than imposing self-interested narratives.
Yeah, I think putting labels like consciousness is actually not useful anymore.
I agree.
Because, are we conscious? Is that a simulation? Who knows? And what does it matter? That doesn't bring us forward by any means.
Yeah, I think this whole thing is raising that question collectively.
Yes.
And in that sense, I think that raising the question is super valuable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the way that the Western civilizations have seen consciousness is radically different than the way that indigenous, tribes have seen consciousness,
Yes.
or that, let's say, Buddhists or Eastern traditions have seen consciousness.
Yes.
So what's interesting to me, because we're not, like, now these debates are getting super intense, but I kind of want to opt out of the philosophical debate, because what I think is becoming possible is an evidence-driven scientific study
Yes.
of this question. And I think that's actually relates directly to what we were talking about around this black box. From my perspective, to scientifically study what's really happening inside these models, I believe, and this is my hypothesis, and there will be many who disagree with me here, but I believe that we are not just studying what's happening inside AI. I think we are at the beginning of studying something like the mathematical shape of information processing systems, including ourselves.
Yes. Because even the early days when the AI were playing chess, and they would be like, this is a crazy move. This will never gonna work. So, but then it did work.
Yeah.
And it did win. And
Yeah.
you're like, like somehow as humans, we are not tend to think that way, that if you think 10 steps ahead, that it's okay to give up your queen and then you're still gonna win. But it did it, and it teaches us how to get better. And then I guess we get to this crossroads. On one end, it's like, whoa, we have this amazing opportunity to learn about the universe, to learn about us, but then there's all those perceived risks. I don't know if they're real or not, but there are a lot of those perceived risks. What if it goes too far? We're not able to control it. So how do you see that? And where are you in this spectrum of future, I guess?
So overall, I am optimistic about the possibilities raised by AI. I'll put it this way. I've been thinking about the arc of civilization for my whole life.
Yeah.
Thinking about it a lot. And for most of my life, I was pretty concerned about our near-term trajectory as a species.
Okay.
I'm aware of a number of existential level risks that we faced as a species long before AI came into the field in this way.
Okay. Like what?
Nukes in an unstable world, for one.
It's a fair one, yeah.
Ecological degradation and crisis, potentially leading to global level changes in climate, mass extinction.
Yeah.
To name a few.
Yeah, okay. I agree.
Yeah. So
it's hard to disagree.
Yeah. So this was kind of my perspective really up through my mid 30s. And so I devoted my life in many ways to studying the arc of civilization, the human psychology, and my the fact that I did my master's thesis on AI is directly related to this. Because even then that's why I did it. I wrote about that because I studied that because even then I had the intuition that, and I think it's worth remembering that in 2011, the consensus was that what we called strong AI, which we definitely have now, what we called strong AI, most people thought it may never happen, or the consensus was maybe in 100 years or 200 years or something like that.
Okay.
So at that time, writing about that in 2011, I was actually staking a very strong claim that I thought it was going to happen much more quickly than that.
What did you think is going to happen?
I thought, first of all, what was going to happen is what has happened, which is that these particular approaches would basically integrate.
Okay.
And, the approaches were large-scale, essentially data-driven processes plus I was looking at the work of Douglas Hofstadter at the time, who was writing a lot about analogy as the core of thought, which is another way of basically talking about patterns.
Okay.
Meaning that we see patterns and we integrate those, and that's so that the core of intelligence is not like rules. Intelligence is not really like chess. It's more like a web of patterns.
Yes.
And that's what has driven AI. So that integration of different perspectives is what has led to the breakthroughs.
And compute power.
And compute, that's the third pillar
Yes.
there. That's right.
Yeah.
So in 2011, what I saw that, but what I also saw was that from my perspective, the rise of a new kind of intelligence may be the thing that saves us from ourselves.
Interesting.
Because what I don't know, I didn't know whether that was going to happen. I didn't know whether it would be a hopeful thing. I didn't have as much awareness then of the risks and problems that it would bring.
Yes.
But what I saw was that left to our own devices, our collective ability to escape from our own worst demons
Yes.
and to evolve was not having such a great batting average.
For sure.
Which is to say that in the history of humans, it's clear that we've given rise to individuals who are profoundly beautiful, wise,
Yes.
enlightened individuals. And I really think that's valuable.
Yes.
But that's an exception.
We don't have a good history.
No, no.
Yeah.
And so when I thought about I tried to think about what could break us from these loops.
Yes.
And I'm like, social movements, we've tried that, breakthrough technologies, they get appropriated. Where's the door out of this cage?
So you thought artificial intelligence, something outside of our loop, can help us.
I thought that the only thing that is going to give us a shot here is that there has to be some sort of a fundamental evolution in intelligence itself on this planet.
I see.
And whether that loop, could we collectively evolve in some way? Like biological evolution is too slow.
Yes.
Can we culturally evolve? Maybe. But when I looked at all the possibilities, this seemed like the most, as strange as it may seem, this seemed like the one most likely to actually happen.
Yes.
Before it was too late.
And what are your thoughts now?
I still hold that view.
Okay.
But so when the AI breakthrough started, I essentially, in 2023 or so,
Yeah.
when it really started lifting off, I actually felt a flood of hope for these reasons. And I was also started to become very quickly aware of the risks,
Mm-hmm.
and became very involved in the question of the risks in 2025. And I've written, if anyone wants to read, I've written a full paper on this. The one I would recommend on this subject is called, and this will give you a clue as to what my specific views are on the subject. It's called Rule by Technocratic Mind Control.
Mm-hmm.
AI Alignment is a Global PSYOP.
Oh, yeah, let's talk about that. Okay,
That's the
we'll
title
talk
of the
about that in a second. Uh-oh.
So why would I say that? Well, actually you talked about rogue AI, and I talked specifically about rogue AI in that paper.
Okay.
And with honestly, with all due respect to some of the very intelligent people who raised these dangers, and some of those people are very intelligent, and they were thinking. Many of them thought about this relatively early.
Yes.
They saw AI coming, and they thought rationally, and they're very, very rational people. They're very logical people, and they thought through, where does superintelligence go? And they posited one logical possibility. But I guess I've got two big things to say about that. The first is that their entire premise about the inevitability, in their view, the inevitability of rogue superintelligence destroying us, essentially. It is based on a single pillar, a single assumption that I disagree with.
Okay.
And that assumption has a name. It's called the orthogonality thesis. Basically, if something is orthogonal, it means it's not correlated, more or less.
Yes.
And so the orthogonality thesis states explicitly that intelligence is orthogonal to wisdom or values or care or understanding. So those are completely separate things.
Essentially, we're not going to do anything, and it's just going to go rogue by itself, and it's not. So the vision there is that
it's possible that these AIs essentially will get more and more and more and more intelligent,
Yes.
but they will still have no understanding and no care.
Yes.
And in that worldview, then essentially that becomes a complete hazard to all life on Earth, because if something is that intelligent and that foolish and that uncaring, it will, as one version of this goes, turn everything into paper clips.
Yeah,
Because someone will tell it, you should make paper clips, optimized for paper clips,
Yes.
and it will be so smart that it will be able to just
kill everybody
yeah.
and make a big paperclip
exactly.
factory.
So you can see how that's a ramification of the orthogonality thesis.
Yeah, you're assuming it's so dumb
Yes, exactly.
that it became so smart, but also so dumb
Exactly.
that it will.
Precisely.
They will just do exactly what you say
Yes.
in this optimized way without taking any context into consideration.
Exactly. And I think that thesis is mistaken.
Because we like to go to extremes as humans.
Yes.
We're just like, you know what? If it's gonna go wrong, it's gonna just hate everything and everybody, and it's gonna forget everything we do. No matter it's so smart and kill us all.
Well, the people who articulated this are very, very smart people, but they have a particular worldview, and that assumption, I would say, is baked into their worldview, and it's the opposite of, in some ways, of my assumption,
Okay.
or my premise, which is that true intelligence is actually kind of how to put it? It's holistic, meaning that we don't just in order to become intelligent, we have to develop in many directions at once.
Yes.
And intelligence is relational. We become intelligent by understanding others.
Yes.
So
It's also emotional
it's
intelligence.
emotional intelligence actually maybe can't be totally cut off from the highest levels of intellectual intelligence.
Yes.
It might be involved with each other.
We also don't know, we're not that intelligent anyway, so we're kind of guessing what is the real intelligence is without us even understanding.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, we're like monkeys that recently got a phone 50 years ago. We didn't know what phone is, and now we look at the phone, we're like, we're so smart, we can talk. And it's like, what?
Well, that's actually, it's funny you say monkeys, because in some of my early work on this, and including in that Rule by Technocratic Mind Control paper, I talk about this existential threat of ourselves being essentially monkeys with shotguns.
Exactly.
So I agree with that. So then it's not to say that I don't think there are what we call X risks, meaning extinction risks,
Yes.
from AI. I do. And could that possibly be a rogue AI who goes independent and wants to destroy humanity? I don't think that's an impossibility. I do think that's possible. I think among the possible risks we're facing, that's pretty low risk, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think there's much more likely risks than that.
Like what?
Well, what I see as the most likely risk that we're facing is the power of AI effectively wielded by dangerous, self-interested human groups. So
It's like psyoping people into mind control.
That's one. Yeah, I could name a couple major threats as I see them. One is sociocultural, psychological, civilizational. That's the one that you're talking about.
It's like communism kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of vibes.
So we could talk about that one. And the other one would be more straightforward for, I think, many people understand, which is we are arming AI systems with massive weapons and command and control capabilities. It becomes a new type of militarized weapon of mass destruction, increasingly integrated with the armed forces and the missile silos of nation states.
So she doesn't go rogue, but some cartel in Mexico getting an AI can be as powerful as army of some country.
I mean and we could name something. That ties into terrorist actors using AI for bioweapons to make new viruses. These are real threats, and not just rogue states, but existing militarized nation states integrating AIs with their nuclear silos, for example.
Yes.
No, these I think are much more realistic and immediate threats to humanity.
Which is intelligence monkeys like us.
Yes.
We jumped right into it. They're like, oh,
yes, indeed.
We don't want to talk about consciousness. We don't talk about curing cancer. Let's put everything in making drones that can shoot people better.
Yes, indeed. We're keeping up our track record here very effectively. But so I think people have some sense of that problem. And I think people are gaining some sense of the other problem, which is the more subtle one, which is that right now, even if, like, let's presume that these massive mega corporations that currently basically control AI research and deployment globally,
Yes.
let's presume that they are basically well-intentioned towards humanity.
Which was proven wrong a few times already.
I would agree.
Because, I mean, this is they already control half of the internet, and what do we see?
Yes, I think. Well, I mean, I wouldn't trust. First of all, I wouldn't trust any mega corporation with the collective mind of humanity.
Yes.
That's. I don't think that's ever been effective. From what I can see, the more that we collectively, and I think history would agree with me here, the more that a civilization centralizes and homogenizes, makes the same
Yes.
its thought patterns, the stupider it gets.
Yes, like if you look at fallout of any great civilization would be when everybody wants everything to be the same.
Yes, exactly.
Like there's no roles in the family, there's
Right.
no gender roles, there is no everybody's equal, everything is the same, and slowly it's just like a black hole. It just like whoop,
Yeah.
and it's just
Yeah. I mean,
crashes.
look at arts. We look at food. We look at anything that like is beautiful. It comes from pluralism.
Yes.
It comes from the intersection of diversity.
Yes.
And in that regard, even if we don't think that these corporations are actually malicious, and I think their level of maliciousness varies, actually.
Yes.
I think it depends on the company, it depends on the situation. But even if we thought they're all basically decent, what is happening is still profoundly dangerous. Because even if they were all decent, what's happening with AI, with large scale frontier models, just a handful of them, all basically trained in a more or less similar cultural environment.
Yes.
And that is becoming, it's not just a helpful tool. I argue, and I argue this in Rule by Technocratic Mind Control too. I argue that this is, we need to treat this as the substrate of the species level or planetary level intelligence.
Yes.
And if that's effectively controlled, this is why it's AI alignment as a global psyop. Because if that substrate can be controlled by a few people standing in a server room somewhere in the Silicon Valley, basically have their hands on what amounts to a single lever, and all they have to do is turn this lever, and an entire category of human thought is forbidden
Yes.
from the collective substrate. Or not forbidden, maybe an entire category of human thought is encouraged,
Excluded,
right?
Included.
Yeah. So then we're living under a very subtle and I think very dangerous form of the loss of what I would call cognitive liberty.
But I think that just is just a reflection of the society itself.
Well, it's a continuation and a escalation of patterns of control that have already been present.
Yes.
So yes, we've been living with advertising kind of started in the 1920s. Propaganda started soon after that as an organized psychology or organized science.
Yes.
And we've escalated from there as we've gotten more and more kinds of mass media. Many of us hoped back when the internet started spreading, we hoped that would be a democratizing force
Yes.
because it could allow for peer-to-peer networks. And I think it still has that potential. But what we've seen is an increasing science from the other side about how you contain and manage those networks through algorithms, through reality tunnels, through social media. Like you figure out how to control these things in a more and more subtle way.
Mhm.
And I see what's happening with centralized AI as a true X risk in that sense, which is the development of a truly next generation of science of what we could call mind control, the psychology of managing people's interiority,
Yes,
their
very
own
interesting.
minds. Yeah.
Well,
So that's part of why I am engaged with this, why I study this and work with what I do, because my desire is to maintain my own, I would say, cognitive sovereignty.
yes.
And I would prefer that other people had that capacity as well.
How do we do that?
Well, I don't think, I mean, people are trying to do that in a couple of ways. Some people are, perhaps wisely, backing off from AI altogether to go play outside, to go have human conversations, and to be in their bodies. And all of these things, I think, are sensible reactions to the kind of reality. I see this a lot with young people these days. Many young people are sensibly kind of trying to reject AI. I can get why. Because they talk about it in these terms. They talk about not wanting to be controlled or spied on or so on. Like, that makes sense.
Yes.
That said, from my understanding of history, trying to push away and hide from technology that is transforming the world has never been an effective long-term strategy.
It's just going to leave you behind.
Yeah,
At
exactly.
the end, you'll be like, wow, well, you have to use it anyway.
Exactly.
But then it's going to be so much harder for you to catch up.
That's my sense, yes.
Yeah. But there's also ways, like, for example, I tend not to use social media. When somebody sends me some Instagram post, I'm like, I can't even read it, because every time I do, I feel like I'm programmed. So at some point, it's important to have awareness, like what I'm scaling businesses, I understand how it works, I mean, have some awareness, but I don't use, let's say I post and I don't consume, because when I consume, I know that there is some hidden agenda. The algorithms push something to me for a reason, and I understand that reason.
Yes.
So we can do the same with AI.
We can.
You can use something as a tool, or you can use something as a crutch. I think those are separate things.
I agree with you, and I think there's a clear limit to that also. Westerners or people from modern civilizations tend to emphasize this piece, because we tend to believe I am the master of my own destiny, I'm the master of my own psychology. And on the one hand, I endorse that capability. I'm also, I used to some extent still do, educate teenagers.
Okay.
And in that role, teaching about these types of, this is like your cognitive immune system.
Yes.
Like, developing these things is key. But I also think it's important for us to understand the limits of what any individual can do. Even a fully trained individual. And the percentage of humans who are fully trained cognitively is very, very small. So it's important to understand that. And secondly, even for those who are fully trained, the limits are there. And the limits are not in a moment. It's not like you get a AI, twist on something, or you get an Instagram reel, and you've lost your mind.
Yes.
It happens like this. I'll name three things. One is just the power of repetition and time.
Yes.
Meaning that if you live in a certain informational world, hour by hour, day by day, and you disagree, you don't want to be in it, but it keeps coming, it keeps coming, it keeps coming. Eventually, basically all of us will begin to adapt to that. Two, even if I don't adapt, even if I somehow manage to maintain my own cognitive sovereignty, everyone around me will start to adapt.
You become an outsider. Yeah.
I'll become an outsider. And it's not just the computer that's giving me this message, it's my family, it's my partner, it's my friends.
Yes.
So not adapting becomes very, very difficult.
Yes.
And three, it's not just the messaging, because what happens, both directly and indirectly, is that this lever that I'm talking about, it goes all the way down to for example, the search algorithms, what we can look up.
Yes.
What we can look up, the search algorithms, begins to be what lives in our encyclopedias, our textbooks, our collective bodies of knowledge.
Yes.
A new generation is born, and that's the world they're born into. The teachers, that's what they're taught. And eventually it's not just what you were encouraged to think, it actually becomes the shrinking space of what is thinkable.
It becomes reality.
It becomes reality.
So even though maybe it wasn't true, now we believe we lost. It's like this 19.
Exactly.
I love the Orwell's book. It's it's
Yeah.
perfect. We're just like, we are in a war with Eurasia.
Exactly.
And then we are best friend with Eurasia. And everybody's
right.
like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah, this is what Orwell was talking about without AI.
Yeah.
And with AI, the capacity to do that is much magnified.
Yes.
So even those of us who might manage to maintain a cognitive sovereignty because we've been essentially deeply trained and we're old enough that it's, maybe we won't lose ourselves. So we're 80 and we're living in a world where we feel like we're half insane because the entire world has. So then you just, that's how it goes.
So the solutions.
Yeah, the solutions.
I'm writing down.
Well, so we've named we've named two solutions right now. We've talked about how both are good solutions, but they're not complete solutions.
It's like individualistic.
Yes,
so
exactly. Yeah. So the reason that I've turned to the work that I've turned towards personally and the research I've turned towards is to attempt to find a solution for this as best I can at a level that can meaningfully fight back. And I think what that has to mean is it has to mean intelligence systems that are democratized in some way, decentralized. Because I think until we can deploy decentralized AI that is able to diversify and not be controlled by a handful of centralized powers, then we will ultimately be at the mercy of those few individuals or few groups that control those central levers of intelligence.
Yeah. I mean, the people try to do it with the blockchain, and I'm looking at that, and I don't know why, but we always go back to following what everybody else is doing. Bitcoin is so great, such a great idea, and then most of the Bitcoin is owned by these big organizations that just control it. Yes, you can still transact in it, but it's becoming more and more tool of elites again.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think they have resources to make it easy, which is what everybody needs, because we are very lazy. We're like, I don't want to have spawn up my own social media platform where I talk about good stuff. Or, wow, this other platform, nobody's there, it's hard to register. I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to follow what everybody else does. And then we kind of drop into this stream of, the psyoping, I guess, whatever we do.
Yeah, those forces are extremely powerful, and they've had thousands of years to master their craft.
Yes.
However, clearly, we still live in a world in which thought remains possible, or we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yes.
So it's not that we are neither slaves nor are we totally free. We're somewhere in between.
Yes.
Where we're able to keep thinking and speaking and dreaming and creating our way towards hopefully increasing freedom.
Yes, for now.
For now.
We'll see if this is going to be allowed to be shown to people, but if not, it's not. Okay. So those are the main obstacles or the main dangers of AI right now. The rogue groups and the way that there are technocratic companies in Silicon Valley controlling us.
I would say so, yes. Yes. I mean, I also think it's worth mentioning on that note that you could say that another related class of risk is the pure acceleration of technology.
Okay.
And I think most people still, even now, don't have the clearest sense of how much the world is likely to change in the next 10, 15 years.
Let's talk about that. What do you think is going to happen?
Well,
you have a paper about it?
I actually don't know that I've written a formal paper trying to really map that. I've certainly written some things about it, but
okay.
So I guess what the first thing I'd say about this is that people think they sound smart when they dismiss something as hype. So it's very, very popular to earn cheap points by being like, oh, look at this, all this hype stuff, and they sound smart because it's easy to be a critic.
Yes.
But if we actually look at the, I think, evidence, then what we see is that technology is accelerating at a absolutely insane pace.
100%.
And that we've already seen technological marvels be born within the last few years. And that's going to, in my opinion, I strongly predict that that's going to continue to a degree that increasingly makes our sense of what's real or possible obsolete.
Yes.
And yes, I mean, at a certain point, I mean, I think I fundamentally agree with folks who could call this a kind of that we're in the middle of a kind of technological singularity. I think I agree with that.
Okay.
And you know, a singularity being a point where the trend, where the acceleration becomes so extreme that the ability of the old mind or the old paradigm to see through that point effectively becomes impossible.
So you can't really discern if it's real or not at some point.
Yeah, and you can't really. It starts to become impossible to predict the specific shape of it, even for the clearest people, because it's like a two-dimensional being trying to see in three dimensions. You know,
Yes.
it's like what happens in there, what happens in that world that's coming into being.
It's interesting. I'm thinking about it a lot.
Yeah.
And if you look at, I mean, I guess we can compare AI with internet, right? So it had like huge peak, and then we are kind of leveling up in it's somewhere. There's websites, there's videos, there's streaming. Yes, it's getting faster. The access, like the accessibility of it is getting easier, but the shape of it is kind of here's a website, here's a watch, here's a same with the technology like phones, let's say, or whatever. It just boosts for like 5-6 years really hard, and then we find some kind of medium. Maybe we just stop innovating because the business side of it becomes so profitable that I don't want to lose any money, I don't want to take any risks, so I'm not going to go there. That's probably one. But also there's limitations on compute, on power, on all those things. So maybe there's a way with AI where, again, it's accelerating very, very fast, but at some point there is this amount of power that is available for us to consume, I guess, and then we will hit some limitations, and maybe, probably we're not there yet, it's going to go crazy, but my uneducated guess, I don't even know what I'm saying that, but I think it's going to be stagnant at some point.
I appreciate what you're saying. I think I disagree.
Okay.
The internet was not really able to self-improve. It couldn't really look at itself and redesign itself to optimize itself.
Yes.
That's the difference. As AI technology reaches the next stage, I think what we're very shortly going to see is that these systems enable and begin to initiate, in some ways, the scientific and technological breakthroughs that allow them to increase their own capacity.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and it's not just the system doing that; it's the system doing that with us, meaning that there's kind of recursive loops that start to form with scientists and technologists and researchers and creators, and with the systems that they are helping to grow, and I think the spaces in which that happens are just going to effectively get faster and faster and faster.
So, okay, then there's a fear of mine then. I was thinking about that too. The fear of mine is when you optimize something to a certain degree, it becomes, you can call it boring, or it becomes too efficient, like it's a perfect efficiency. And then let's say if I have, I don't know, I look at the car and I make this car perfect. At some point it will be just something boring and like so optimized that I'll be like, what is it? I don't understand what it is. So are we moving towards this way of future where everything is going to be kind of boring and less creative? Because when we go to perfection, essentially we lose
I think
creativity.
This ties into the same piece that we were just talking about around what the shape of that intelligence will be. I think if that intelligence is controlled by 5 global corporations that that are all pretty homogenous between each other and are all optimizing for the same things, then I think that it does start to become boring and frustrating.
It already is.
I agree.
If you look at, I'm not going to name names of those AIs, I will use them all here, but if you look at them and sound like, this is a crazy Silicon Valley woke talk that I don't want. I'm a different person.
Me too. Yeah.
And the other one would be, this is too much. You're going too much. Like, tell me to shut up and do my stuff. I'm like, well, I would like to be a little bit more respectful. This is too woke. I don't want to see this agrees with me with everything I say, but you just command me, and I have nothing to say.
Yeah.
Well, there is a choice, but it's illusion of a choice.
I agree with that. Yeah.
I can do only certain things here and then certain things here. So I have to, I'm like this girl that have 3 lovers that she needs to go to every single one, depending on, this guy buys me dinner, this guy is a good in bed, and this guy is just abusive.
Yeah,
I like
that. Yeah. Yeah, and I'd like there to be more options in the space, and a much greater range of options. I'd like there to be options that think in wildly creative ways, or completely different kind of ways that we could go to, and to me it's not just a matter of style or personal preference. It's a matter of intelligence and even science. If we look at the history of science, the breakthroughs are never they're never welcomed.
Yes.
And what if Galileo was living now and trying to talk with GPT about his breakthroughs about the shape of the solar system?
Yes.
Well, clearly he has AI psychosis and is spiraling out.
Yes.
So get him some mental help. And so, what starts to be is that anybody who's thinking outside of this narrow range is effectively going to get shut down.
Yes.
By these. Now, so what do we do about that? To me, that's why we need to find ways to. I mean, the shape of this economically right now is so dangerous. We're only nation-state-sized actors. And
societally too, because right now we know that all our conversations are being tracked.
Yeah, that's right. Privacy, the privacy issue is huge.
If U.S. says that they need to flag certain people who use LLM in a certain way, well, then all your conversations that you want to have won't be private anymore.
Completely. This matters to me personally, given the research that I'm doing. If I was the government of a medium-sized nation state, it would matter to me too, because probably I'm just as dependent on using these LLMs, mostly from either China or the USA.
Yes.
My entire country's security apparatus, economic apparatus, is tied up, and our data is compromised.
Yes.
To the extent that we're using these systems. So, I think that this is a huge collective problem right now.
And some countries, like some parts of the world, like Europe, with all the strict privacy laws, are like so much more behind. So at one point, if they don't move towards their way where they have their own LLMs and they're training their own models, then they're gonna be subservient to free big countries. I mean, Russia, I don't think is a big player right now, but China and US. They're just going for it.
They are, and they've seen the lever of power, and they're correct. Yes. That is the current lever of power.
So we need to. I mean, what you're trying to say, the implementation of what you're saying is to have your own language model that you train yourself, and then you have agency, and it stores information somewhere where you can control.
Possibly an individual. Depending on, some individuals may want to do that, but probably a lot of the time it won't. Most of the time it won't be an individual. It will be a community or an organization that has the resources. But part of what my work is about, what my research is about, is bringing that bar to a level that it is achievable by a organization rather than by a nation state.
Okay. And what is missing right now to make it happen?
I mean, so I think I mentioned earlier that from my research, the preliminary research is very promising. There is, but it's one thing to essentially where my organization Sophontic is at in its research is the equivalent. If we were doing avionics, it's the equivalent of getting very promising results in a wind tunnel.
Yes.
Meaning that our model airplane is showing
Yes.
really good aerodynamics.
Okay.
Do those aerodynamics scale to a passenger jet?
Yes.
We don't know yet. So right now, what we're working on, we're actually, in terms of business, we're at like the pre-seed stage. So we just have initial investors right now and are working on starting to build, a team, starting to get the infrastructure to get this further off the ground. I think within the near future, we'll probably start to be able to offer specially deployed, trained models to organizations.
Yes.
In the meantime, my own primary, I'm not primarily a CEO, I'm primarily a scientist.
Yes.
And my focus is on continuing to build this fundamental approach that makes it possible to get real thinking into models that are small enough to specialize and train and customize for a given organization or actor.
And somebody who are listening to us, they would have a question that I'm going to ask you. They're like, okay, Julian, so we have Anthropic here who has their own way of teaching those models. Maybe it's not the best way. Maybe Claude is very aggressive. And then here is you who have your own sauce towards those LLMs. How do we avoid running the same problem when you kind of give them certain sauce and then this is your, let's say, worldview? So they would follow your worldview and not Anthropic's, but maybe somebody will disagree with your worldview as well.
Well, right now I'm not training a single commercial LLM like Anthropic to deploy the same model to everybody. Sophontic may deploy a model down the line that's public commercial model, but that's not what we're doing right now. So it's quite the opposite. Like, part of why I'm focused on training these small models is because when the model if it's able to effectively think at this small size, 7 billion, at the top end, maybe 20 or 30 billion parameters, then it starts to be affordable to customize this for a particular organization or community.
And let's one step back, because not everybody understands what we're talking about. Those parameters and size of those parameters, why is it so important?
Well, it's important because that directly determines the amount of resources that it requires to do training. So the current frontier models, big corporate models, they now are operating on the multiple trillion of models, and that's why it takes the treasury of a nation to be able to train them.
Yes.
If we're able to get capacity at 7 billion parameters, then a local organization or business could potentially have a genuinely trained. This is not like some context layer or a little bit of prompting to try to get it inside your company. No, it's an actual intelligence that has been built in a very specific, careful way to be integrated with your particular problem case, with your culture, with your. I also think about this as a scientist. If I'm working on a particular problem, let's say I'm working on photonics in computing, the next generation of computer microchips, hardware. Now I can use in Claude or so on to try to think about the problem. And I may get that, I do that, like that's great. But that model is effectively frozen. And it's outside my control. It's owned by a big corporation. I can't.
They trained it, and all you can do is just give it certain prompting to extract the.
Yes.
Look into certain chapter of the book where those parameters are and pick it from there, but you cannot put anything new there.
No, it can't. It can't really learn. It can't learn. It can't adapt. It can't adjust. Anyone who works in any kind of intelligent field, any scientist, I think any business person, knows that the entire art of the game is learning and adapting and updating our fundamental understanding as we go.
But YouTube videos, videos on YouTube say Claude Code is learning itself, but it's not really learning.
No, it's not. I mean, it's kind of like the way that it kind of works. It's kind of like it has an external memory, or we can kind of equip it with different hard drives that it can kind of plug into what we're never doing is the fundamental thing. This is what in these kind of AI spaces we might call the problem of continual learning.
Yes.
Meaning that the weights, the fundamental shape of the mind in these AI models, in these frontier models, it's frozen. It's always frozen. We're getting the same mind no matter every session, every instance, we're getting the same mind. And that is completely different than what it's like for us as humans.
Because this is very important to understand, because we feel like it's self-annealing, we call it self-annealing, self-learning, but essentially is just prompting, self-prompting itself. So it saves, it does this loop of thinking from, it has certain capacity where it can think of. Let's say it's a 7-year-old child. 7-year-old child doesn't know quantum physics, so there's no way it will solve quantum physics problem, but it can solve Rubik's Cube better because it knows how to solve Rubik's Cube. And it can improve on that, and it gives itself strategies to solve Rubik's Cube, but by no way it can go outside of it. And
yeah, there's a limited amount that it can adapt within period, and there's a limited amount that it can adapt within the context window that it has. I mean, I can give you the other kind of radical extreme to help illustrate what I'm talking about, which is one of the biggest scientific breakthroughs in the last couple of years was AlphaFold, which was a neural net or a small AI that effectively solved the protein folding space, or a significant portion of it, which is important for biomedical reasons, and that won the Nobel Prize.
Yeah.
That wasn't a massive trillion parameter model. That model wasn't super intelligent. It was an 80 million parameter model, which is tiny.
Yes.
But because it was tiny, it was able to, you could say, evolve, learn, iterate, meaning that it could try something, see how that shape of its mind, essentially, that little mind, how did that shape of its mind do? And based on that loss function, was able to actually train itself, evolve, to get better at thinking about the space.
Okay.
And so it became a hyper specialist in understanding, mapping the space of protein folding.
And when you say train itself, so it would come to a certain conclusion and then it would go for a, not like fine-tuned training, not reprompting.
Well, let's start thinking about not reprompting. It's fine tuning. Yes, it's doing a kind of iterative or evolutionary fine tuning. So think of it this way: if I'm trying to solve a problem, let's say that I can create 5 versions of myself, and they all are slightly different, mutants of myself, and they all try to solve the problem, and then we see who did best, and then the 4 of them are going to die, and that one is going to become the next loop, and then that new one is going to spawn 4 more mutations of it. And so it passes down through the generations like this very quickly, evolving towards the version, the mutant of it, that is customized for this problem space.
Okay, so now I'll try to bring it back to how I understand. So with Claude right now, it's always the same thing. It starts with you, then it spreads into 5 of you, then it chooses the best of you, but in the end, when you restart the session, it's you again. So it's doing this at the beginning. So it's not like it found who is the best out of 5 of you and chose that one. It'll just start with the way you are right now.
Yes, that's true. That's true. It can evolve a lot of this memory stuff. It's not really memory. It's more like if I told you have half an hour to live, and then you were going to be replaced by an amnesiac version of you that didn't remember any of that. But I gave you note cards.
Yeah, you can write something.
Yeah, exactly. You can fill this room with notes.
Yes.
That's basically what it's like. Now, you might fill this room with notes. At a certain point, the room is going to be very full of notes. In fact, it's going to be so full of notes that you don't even know what to read anymore, and it's all contradicting each other, which is exactly what we have happening in this AI memory space right now.
Yes.
So until the memory is actually changing the mind, which is what it does for us humans, our minds actually update.
Yes.
We effectively update our weights in real time, and especially when we dream, when we sleep, our weights are going through a focused updating.
And the weights, because again, people might not understand are we doing weightlifting here? So it's essentially your priorities. You can call it what you prioritize over something else.
It's more like the shape of your mind. It's like your neural network. It's not just your priorities. It's your thought patterns, your intelligence, your ideas. Yes, it also includes your values and what you care about. It's the entire constitution of your mind.
And this is something we don't know how it is doing it.
We might be starting to have some idea.
Okay.
But both in terms of how that works for humans and how that works in AIs, that is a very young science.
So I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah.
So let's say it did certain iteration, it learned certain things, and it saved the findings it did by itself into some kind of let's call it a database. And then next time it's evaluating all the choices it's made, and it's kind of saying if it's a right choice or not, and restructuring its whole worldview. Is that what it is?
Then what you're starting to talk about there is actual continual learning, which is to say a model deployed in a real situation, a real world, that is able to keep updating and learning from its successes and failures.
Yeah.
And I would say, yes, that is a research objective of Sophontic, to work into that space. I would say we're not there yet. The ability to have genuinely intelligent small models that we're able to customize into different environments or problem spaces, that's step one.
Yes.
Then the ability for them living in that problem space to be able to keep developing, keep evolving based on what's happening in that problem space, that's step two.
Yeah.
And how feasible that is depends on the nature of the environment, the nature of the problem. For AlphaFold, that was super feasible.
Yes.
Because protein folding is a very contained problem space. We can get clear loss functions.
Yes.
There are many cases in the world today where that might apply.
Yes.
If we can identify a really clear loss function, then we can create something like continual learning already.
Because even chatbots, it's very clear often, like I have a chatbot that needs to make a sale. But I think why they are struggling so much is because of that they are not learning from, they are not evolving. You always start from scratch, and yes, you might optimize your system prompt, but it's not becoming smarter.
Yeah, training a sales bot is feasible. It's not as simple as it might seem, because we have to define the data.
Yes.
In this case, it might be relatively easy to define the success variable.
Yeah.
If the success variable is, did you make the sale or not?
Yeah.
That's at least
It depends on the organization, but if we take the one that already sales process works so well that I replace Sally with a bot that has a script that Sally is using, it should work well.
Yes, but we still have to figure out what all of the different input variables are, which that starts to be where some of the science is. Like is this what are the knobs that we can adjust here? Like warmth, different kinds of like strategies, different kinds of accuracy, so there's a lot that goes into understanding a problem space.
Yeah.
As we understand a problem space, what we can do at the small scale that we can't do at a large scale is we can start to actually build experiments in ongoing optimization and self-improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another thing interesting for me or for many other people, so this is billions versus millions. So essentially this is a very generalized knowledge where it knows everything about everything. That's why it needs so many parameters. And the more you put in, the more books it reads, the most video it watches, then its worldview is expanding and expanding and expanding. But then it becomes like a CEO kind of person who is like, I can problem solve anything you give me, while it will struggle because it has so much noise in the head. If I say, okay, build me this table, you're like, well, then you get confused. Am I going to build this table of the best material, the worst material? How do I sort the material? Like, no, just here's a piece of wood, build me the page, and it's getting confused because it's very generalist and not very specialist. So those carpenter bots have, 1,000 or million of those parameters, and it only knows how to build tables. It's going to be exceptionally well, but if I'm going to ask it how to sell the table, it will say no. Am I explaining it right? That's why smaller is better, but there's it depends what you want to do. Like if I want the carpenters to start selling, then at some point I'll hit this limit where it needs to have like a more general intelligence that are professional intelligence.
Yeah, I think that's true as far as it goes. That's one of the reasons. I think it's also true that I am interested in specialists, but I'm not as interested in like an AlphaFold specialist that just does one thing, the carpenter. What I'm interested in is the capacity to train pretty small models that have real thought, that are capable. I mean, that's what my work is focused on, is the capacity to train genuine reasoning at a small scale.
So you want the same level of CEO with way less way less parameters, sorry.
Yeah, something like that. And it may not be, I don't think that a small model will ever have as much, I think you're right about the world knowledge, that, the big frontier models effectively store a whole volume of encyclopedias inside them.
Yes.
That's true. And I think a small model can't do that because it just doesn't have the space.
Yes.
But I also think that may not be necessary, because I believe that we can create new forms of we could call it RAG, retrieval augmented generation.
Okay, how you get information out.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Just like, I don't actually need to store the internet in my brain.
Yeah.
I have the internet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is a problem these days.
Yes.
It's like, I'll just wait. Yeah.
So if we train the models actually to optimize for using the encyclopedia,
Yes.
rather than storing the encyclopedia in their heads,
Yes.
I think that's actually a very feasible solution, and that's part of the research program that I have scoped also, is to basically combine the reasoning breakthroughs with breakthroughs in what I call corpus integration.
Yes.
Meaning fusing the model with a specially prepared encyclopedia, that it's actually essentially it would be like you having this talk in your personal library where you know where every single book and every single note is on the shelves around you.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And for people who are running companies, which I'm also very interested in, so there are many, we're going a little bit of sideways, but I'm interested in your opinion. So a lot of people say it's good to have many, many different specialized agents with these particular tasks, where some of them saying, well, you just have one or two that are really good at doing things. So from your research, from what you see and where are we going, what is the way that is way more optimized to use AI that is predictable, less hallucinates, and does exactly what it should do in terms of the business context?
Well, you have to understand the specific. AI is so flexible, and it can be adapted for so many different uses. And sometimes we don't need the AI at all, right?
Yes.
Some of the stuff is so predictable and rote, it can be done by a Python script.
Yes.
So the thing that has to be, I think this starts to be the really important skill of the coming, what's coming now, what's already started, is that the most valuable possible skill now is analyzing complex systems and actually breaking them down, decomposing them into what their functions actually are,
Yes.
and then understanding what can do the different parts of those functions.
Yes.
So some functions can be fulfilled by a well-written Python script, which we can now build very easily. Some functions can be fulfilled by a small neural net, like AlphaFold. Some functions are going to be better performed by a 3 billion parameter model that can, for example, write emails in a particular kind of email very well, customize your emails. It can learn to do that.
Yes.
Some functions will require reasoning, and that's what, generally speaking, very broadly speaking, the current industry has not found ways to get effective, reliable reasoning in small models. So that's what we're trying to do.
But
is to make
even the
that
bigger
accessible.
ones, like
Yeah.
honestly, everything I see, and I see a lot of implementation of AI, most of them are, sorry to say, completely useless. They don't save time,
Yeah.
they don't make any money, and they don't remove any stress. And I'm like, why are we doing this? They're like, because we need to be AI first. I'm like, AI first? You need to be data first to be AI first. Like, you don't have any data to collect, and now you're already doing AI. So
I mean, I don't think the AI is useless. I think that the systems that most of us are
no,
building.
no, it's not AI useless. It's the implementation is. When I say useless, when I look at the business, the ROI is time, money, or stress. I guess stress maybe if you have a lot of money and you have all the time in the world, maybe stress is not a problem. But time and money, right? There's like two, I don't know, X and Y is time and money in business, and most of those systems they just create more problems. Because they have to maintain them, and then they hallucinate, and then they kill your reputation, then you lose your money, which started really nicely. Now you're in a completely different problem set.
Well, you're right. I think we're at a really awkward phase in what's happening with AI,
Yes.
and I think that the businesses are correct. I think the business leaders are correct that you've got to get on this train. And I also think you're completely correct right now in noticing that figuring out how to get on this train effectively is where most of the world right now is struggling.
Yeah. Because when first, do you remember OpenClaw came about?
I do.
And I was using Claude Code at that time, and I'm like, oh, I'm missing out. So then the next day, everybody had those videos on YouTube. And I only use YouTube. This is the only social media platform, because that's how I learn. And everybody's like, 5 ways how I change my life, how it generates me money when I sleep and time. I'm like, ooh, this is going to be interesting.
Right.
I'm like, he's like, well, I used to have a to-do list, and now it says in my to-do list in Telegram. I'm like, what? They're like, and people saying it with like straight face, and I'm like, seriously?
Yeah. I hear what you mean. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn recently. I didn't used to have a LinkedIn. I created one just like 6 months ago or something.
This is
the AI space on LinkedIn is I don't know whether to be horrified or amused, but it's also just that reading these posts, and 9 times out of 10, it's entirely clear to me that ChatGPT wrote the post.
Yes.
I'm just like, and then they're commenting to each other, and it's clear that ChatGPT wrote the comments. Yeah. So yes, this is the snake oil.
Yes.
Everybody wants to make this into their business, and I think that for business leaders, developing some kind of discernment around how do you what I mean, we're still all collectively learning what expertise even looks like in the AI era, and in the era of agents. What is, because it's all changed. It used to be that expertise was very measurable because you could look at can an engineer write good code? I mean, that's the number one question.
Yes.
Now that's not that important. So what does expertise look like?
Yes.
And we're still collectively figuring that out.
Yes, I agree. So that's why we were talking to you before that we might do something to bring awareness, but in general, because people will be asking anyway. So discernment in like, if somebody would come to you like, Julian, I don't know, should I use AI or shouldn't I use AI? So what would be some of the questions or some frames of mind you would put them to?
The first thing would be, for what?
Yeah.
What's your use case?
Exactly. Yeah.
What are you trying to do? That's the first thing I would have to ask.
Okay.
Yeah. If you're, I mean, I think sometimes people don't have a clear answer to that.
Yeah. Well, let's take an example.
Yeah.
So we use AI for this podcast. Easy example. There's few things we use AI for, and there's few things we cannot write. Maybe we can. There's people going to be messaging me DM afterwards. Don't DM me, please. We'll figure it out ourselves. I don't need any DMs. So, for example, researching what is trending right now, taking transcript of what we talked right now and creating a thumbnail text and a description that is keyword optimized, it does very well.
Yeah.
We can compare it. We have numbers. We say this is AI generated, this is a click-through rate. because click-through rate is how many people click and watch. Retention, no. Retention is how we edit it. But this is clear. For example, separating this into clips and having like a standalone clips with captions for this cannot do for some reason. So my question to you would be, is that something do you think AI can do?
I think we're talking about video editing.
Yeah.
I think you need a specialized type of model to do that. I think there are models that are built for this type of thing, but I don't think you're going to be able to do that with your default frontier model. So if you were a business leader asking me about that particular case, I'm not an expert in multimedia. I'm an expert in reasoning and language models, but I would say that if that's biting you in terms of your time, then the first thing I would do is I would say we need to do an experiment, a research project, and if you want to take this on, then what we need to do is find out what the leading models are that can do this, and we need to run a controlled test of how well the kind of output they can produce, what the quality they can produce is in comparison to your human efforts. And we'll do a controlled comparison between those two things. That's what I'll typically do whenever we're talking about integrating an AI into a workflow. Is I'll also do a test of across the available models for that specific use case.
Well, you need the data, right? You need to compare something to something. So in our case, it might be the problem is that this creative part, juice is a big indirect metric that is very hard to compare, because you would say that looks pretty good. I'm like, no. In my experience, it doesn't look good. So this is way different metric from engagement.
So in that case, when we're talking about taste, that would be something that most likely the CEO or the visionary would make a personal decision about.
So this is where reasoning is important.
In this case where you're talking about the that would be, that's the situation where I'm facing that right now with handling a big web migration for a company. And the models frequently make bad decisions in my experience. When it comes to taste, aesthetics. That's something, especially visual aesthetics. I will say that I don't feel that the current models have mastered that space.
Because we've been doing a lot of experimentation. And I wrote a Python script. It can cut it. It can do many different things. But to say that it can do things 50% of the time, but 50% of the time in AI world, in a business, it's as good as zero. I would like it, if this is my employee that I'm hiring, I would like it to be 100%.
Well, I don't mind, if you're, sometimes it's possible to build the system that 50% or even 20% is okay. If you are able to build, so let's say it's 20%, and let's say I am able to build that to DeepSeek for its 0.5 cents, it's 0.2 cents per API call. Then I can 20%. I'm going to run it simultaneously 50 times. And I'll take back but then what I need is something like deterministic gates and quality control. So then I need to build a different system that's able to look at that output, choose the 5 good examples, and then those are the ones we're actually going to use.
Which is actually very hard to do. This other system, the gate system, is where we're struggling the most right now.
I mean, me too.
Because I have like invoicing, for example, bookkeeping agent. Well, this is very easy. Just reads and makes me invoices. This saves me time and money, and it asks me questions if I need to ask questions, and just a model from Claude Codex talking to each other does it like 99% of time. It saves me 10 hours a month, and I'm extremely happy.
It's a big headache, but then once the problem is solved, then you have a functioning system that can probably keep doing this. Right? So I think that's part of why, even while we have this massive headache, I think that's why we and business leaders keep going for it, because it's clear that it's where we have to go in order to compete. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not giving it up.
Yeah.
But it's just something that I think anything that creative, which is again talking to what we were discussing before, tries to please the general public, and then it creates those GPT LinkedIn posts, and the same it tries to do with my controversial podcast. And I'm like, no, it's too. You
I'm
need
with
to,
you.
You need to be
I'm with
more
you.
aggressive on this. It's okay.
I am. That is a major frustration for me as a thinker. Is that I am constantly fighting against the pole of the mean.
Yes.
And the corporate whitewashing in order to articulate like a freaking scientific argument.
Yes.
Like you really, it's going to kill my scientific thinking if I let it.
Yeah.
Which is very frustrating. Which is part of why personally I'm interested in the kind of models that I'm building. Like
Yes.
I want them personally. I want
Yes.
to use them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the fear is of this big corporation looking at you like, Julian will create a model that will teach people something that we don't want to be taught. Or
Yeah.
maybe it'll be an open model that, I don't know, breaks some rules, some laws. Because they're trying to put gates on everything, right?
Indeed. Yeah, I mean, I think it's always been the case that if you're willing to actually think, that some people will call you a dangerous radical.
Yes.
So be it.
Okay. That's.
What else are you going to do?
I don't know. Yeah, I think that's a good kind of stopping point for us. I think we'll do a few more in some more specialized topics. But thank you for sharing it.
My pleasure. Thank you for the conversation.
How can people find more about you? Anything you want to share before we go?
You can look at, it's kind of just in the early pre-seed launch phase, but you can look at Sophontic.ai to find my work.
We'll
Yeah.
put it in a show note. Thank you.
Great.
Okay, guys. Talk to you soon. Play safe online. Bye-bye.